With everything happening in the United States concerning F1 visa and immigration, many people, including those students that are already in the United States on F1 visa or those that are planning to come, are trying to stay safe. And in trying to stay safe and remaining law-abiding, many people just know the basics. In 2025, knowing just the basics would not cut it, and ignorance is very, very expensive. It can as well cost you your visa statusship. In today's video, I will be shedding light on gray areas about the F1 visa, which people only discover when it is already too late. If you are planning to come to the United States to study or you're already here, this video is for you. Please note that I am not a legal practitioner, and the facts that I will be sharing in this video are from reliable sources like the Immigrations and Customs Enforcement and Department of Homeland Security website. You can also verify this information depending on the time or the year that you are watching this information to find what is most relevant at the particular time that you're watching this video. Links will be provided in my description box for you to access this information on your own. The information that I'll be sharing in this video can be divided into three major parts. We'll be talking about the foundation. Secondly, we'll be talking about gray areas. And lastly, we'll be talking about new enforcement trends. So now we will be starting with the foundational rules. And first on this category is your full-time enrollment requirement. On coming to the United States to study, there is a minimum number of credits that you are expected to register for each semester, depending on whether you are an undergraduate or you are a graduate student. For undergraduates, you are expected to register for a minimum of 12 credit hours per semester. Notice that this is a minimum requirement. You could register for more depending on if your course advisor or your designated school official thinks that you have the capacity to handle whatever it is you want to register for per semester. While for graduate students, it can vary between 6 to 9 credit hours per semester. For example, my school, the minimum is 6 credits. Some other schools have a higher requirement, and the graduate student credit requirement is really coordinated by each individual school. You want to make sure that before you start registering for class as a new F1 student, you communicate properly with your course advisor and also your designated school official, which is shortened for DSO. Information about who your DSO is will be on your Form I-20, which is one of the documents you presented at the embassy during your F1 visa interview. A very common mistake that I see many people make when they come to the United States to study on F1 visa is to think that they can come into the United States and maintain a visa statusship of F1 while taking just online courses. This is a no-no. Think about it. If you are going to take an F1 visa, you went to the embassy, you got an F1 visa, and you are coming to the United States, and you decide that you are only taking online courses, then you could as well stay back in your own country and take that online courses, meaning that you did not need the F1 visa in the first place. So as an international student on an F1 visa, you cannot take only online courses and remain on a full-time enrollment requirement. Not maintaining the minimum number of credits required for you can get your SEVIS status terminated. SEVIS stands for your Student and Exchange Visitors Program. This is like a website where your activities as a student is kind of monitored. There are a few exceptional cases where students are allowed to register for less than their required minimum. For example, if there is a medical emergency which you must have communicated with your school, or if you're in your final semester and you only have like your thesis or your capstone research to do, so you can actually take less number of credits if approved by your DSO. All of these exceptions or accommodations for reduced number of credits is really dependent on if your DSO approves it. So please bear in mind that you have to take this minimum number of credits except there is a special case and approval by your DSO, which must also be properly documented in case there is a future need to verify one or two things. The information that I just shared concerning the minimum number of required credits can be confirmed on the Department of Homeland Security website. The second thing on the foundational rules that I'll be talking about is work authorization. For many people, we know that you can only work on campus, right? We call it on-campus employment, and this allows you to work for a maximum of 20 hours per week during the academic session, like during the fall or during the spring. You can only work for 20 hours. This can be extended to 40 hours when there is no academic session, like during the summer, you don't really have a large coursework. So that is on-campus employment. But what many people do not know is what exactly is permissible as an on-campus employment and what exactly is not. According to the information on Immigration and Custom Enforcement website, on-campus employment refers to employment that puts you in a place to deal with students. For example, you could be working in the bookstore, you could be working in the library, you could be working in the dining service, you could be working as a reception where you are constantly interacting with people. A graduate assistantship where you teach students is also considered an on-campus employment. However, if there's a construction company who is coming to your school for a particular period of time to do some maintenance job, that is not considered an on-campus employment. More details about this can be found in the link that I provided in the description box below. Another important thing about on-campus employment is that whatever on-campus employment that you are taking must not displace any US citizen or a lawful permanent resident of the United States. So you need to put all of this into mind, and your designated school official, which is usually working in your international school office, is going to be in a good position to help and guide you in what you can take as an on-campus employment and what you cannot take as an on-campus employment. Next to this is off-campus employment. During the academic session, international students on F1 visa cannot take an off-campus employment except in a few cases. Off-campus employment is accommodated through what we call a curricular practical training, which is shortened for CPT, or an optional practical training, which is shortened for OPT. CPT is a type of practical training that you take in a company or an organization that is doing something that is very related to your field of study. And for CPT, approval is actually solely based on your DSO approval, who is going to confirm that the employment or the job offer that you have is very related to your field and you are not overworking. So there is full-time CPT and there is part-time CPT. Full-time CPT means that you are working for 40 hours per week. Part-time CPT means you are working for 20 hours or less per week. Another thing to note about CPT is that for many students, you cannot start CPT immediately you come into the country. Like, for example, in your first academic session, you cannot immediately start a CPT. You need a minimum of 1 year in school before you can start the CPT, except in cases where maybe your course, whatever program you are doing, has a CPT requirement within the first semester. So this is already going to be known. It's not, you're not just coming, let's say you are coming in fall and your program doesn't have any CPT requirements in that fall. You cannot start a CPT immediately. And please note again, like I said, that you have to have a DSO approval before you start your CPT. And you cannot start earlier than your DSO approved date. All of these things are things that you need to put in mind when you are making plans to come to the United States. Another type of off-campus employment that I mentioned earlier is the optional practical training. This is a type of job employment that people take after their program is completed. For everybody, whether you are in STEM or non-STEM, you have a 1-year OPT opportunity to do a work related to your field. It's for 1 year, and most times most people do a full-time OPT. But what you must note is that even if you are coming for a STEM program, we know that most people in STEM can get up to 3 years OPT, but this is not exactly automatic. So remember, I said that everybody has 1 year initially. Now, if you are in STEM program, if you did a STEM program, you can apply for an extension. But note that this extension also is not automatic. Whether you get your extension approved is dependent on many factors. For example, if you still have a valid employment, if you were law-abiding during your first year of OPT. I have seen many instances of people who thought that they were going to be able to extend their OPT but got the rude shock of a rejection when they applied for their OPT extension. So please put all of this in mind. When I talk about the gray areas, I'm going to highlight some other deep gray areas about CPT and OPT as we progress. Another thing to note, which is kind of like another exception concerning off-campus employment, is that nationalities of particular countries are allowed to do off-campus employment even during the academic session because their country has been documented to have economic hardship or other severe conditions. So please make sure that you do not just jump the gun and think that you can take any job when you come to the United States. Yes, America is a land flowing with milk and honey, but it is at a particular designated period of time that you can legally do and explore some opportunities. Another important thing on our foundational rules is the I-20 program end date. On that I-20 document that you got when you were going to apply for your visa, you got these documents from your school. There is your program start date and your program end date. This program end date is an expected date that you should be done with your program. Most people finish their program within that frame, but others might need an extension. But if you need an extension, you do not automatically just think that SEVIS would know that you need an extension. You need to apply for that extension with your designated school official, which is your DSO, to extend your I-20. If you decide to go on with your academics without properly communicating things and updating your SEVIS portal, you are going to be penalized for this. During your time in the United States as an F1 student, the visa you receive from your own country might be up to 4 years, 2 years, while visa naturally stands for a document that allows you to come in to a country, right? If you have any reason to leave the country during the length of your visa, you do not automatically gain a re-entry just because you have a visa. Before you left the country, you must have signed your I-20 by your DSO or your international office. So you need to have proper documentation before you decide to travel or any other thing. After the completion of your academic program, you have a grace period of 60 days to either start an OPT, which is an optional practical training, or to leave the country. If for any reason your SEVIS status was terminated, that 60 days grace period is not applicable. Now to the gray areas, which many people in recent times are falling trap of. When we talk about OPT, you are only allowed to do one OPT per academic level. What do I mean by this? You can only do one OPT for bachelor's, one OPT for master's, and one OPT for PhD. If, for example, you have 2 masters, you cannot do OPT with the first master's and plan again to do another OPT with the second master's, because like I said earlier, you only have one OPT per academic level. If you did your first master's and you did not do an OPT immediately following that, you can still do an OPT after your second master's, but you cannot plan to do one OPT for one master's and do another OPT for another master. Even if you decide to switch fields, for example, if your first master's was in finance and your second master's is in biology, you can still not repeat OPT for the same academic level, which is master's. So that means if you did OPT for your first master's in finance, you cannot think that you will do another OPT for your master's in biology simply because you moved from a non-STEM field to a STEM field. It doesn't work that. Something that is also very, very interesting to note is that if you do CPT, a full-time CPT, which is, like I said earlier, working for 40 hours per week for a full 1 year. So if you did CPT for a year or longer, you have just denied yourself opportunity to do OPT when you complete your academic program. A full year CPT is equated to an OPT. So when you do a full-time CPT for a year, it is equally like you have just used up your OPT. But this does not apply if you did a part-time CPT. If you did a part-time CPT, you can still do your OPT. So if you did a full-time CPT for a year or more, you can no longer do OPT after your program is completed. So please bear all of this in mind as you prepare for your future in the United States. Another thing that is usually a shocker for many people is that if you take an unpaid work during academic session or during summer without authorization, which is off campus, so you took an off-campus job, you are not getting a pay for it. Let's say you are thinking that you are volunteering, you are not getting paid for it. that is accounted as illegal work, even if it is unpaid, especially if whatever job you are doing, some other people are doing the same job and getting paid for it. So that is considered an illegal work, even though it is unpaid. You might naturally think that since I am not making money from this, then I'm not harming anybody, but it doesn't work like that. Like I said earlier, ignorance is very expensive, and there is nothing like I don't know in the United States. Know your facts, work by it, work with people that have the information, and you'll be just fine. So now to the new trends that we are seeing with things that are causing many people to have their F1 visa revoked is what we call law traffic violation. It has never really been amplified as much as now, that having law traffic violation like getting a speeding ticket can cause you to become out of status as an F1 student in the United States. So with all being said, do I still think that the United States is still a favorable destination for international students? My honest answer is it depends. It depends on if everything that I have said in this video is something that threatens your academic or career goals, then maybe not. But if world-class education, research opportunities, and career exposure is something that matters to you, I would say yes. The United States is still a place that you can explore your dreams and opportunities. As far as you stay proactive, you stay informed, and don't believe in hearsay, you seek out information for yourself, you are going to be just fine. Getting an F1 visa is important, but legally keeping it is equally important in this time and season. If you've learned one or two from this video, it's a good time for you to engage with it, like, subscribe, comment, and share with others to get this very valuable information. And make sure you also interact with the links that I've provided in the description box below. See you in my next video. Bye.